My name is Kelly Patterson, and I am the clinical nutrition educator here at OmegaQuant, and I am going to be discussing our mother's milk DHA test. Let's go ahead and get started. So, why bother measuring DHA in mother's breast milk? This is not a commonly done test, very unique to our testing protocol here at OmegaQuant. And the reason we came up with this test is DHA is an important component of infants' developing brain and eyes. We also have a prenatal DHA test. If you're interested in learning about that, go watch our other video on prenatal DHA. But DHA contains or is really, really important for the developing brain and eyes of baby, and has a lot of benefits for mom as well too. So having enough DHA during pregnancy is crucially important. Making sure mom has enough DHA while she's breastfeeding is important, and a way to verify that mom has enough DHA in her diet that it's getting to baby is to test breast milk for that DHA. Breast milk is the best source of nutrition for an infant, and it'll always contain some level of DHA, but that level will go up and down depending on mom's diet. And breast milk DHA levels are correlated to mom's blood levels, and it's largely dependent on mom's DHA intake. We are able to synthesize some DHA in our bodies, but for the most part, it's dependent on our intake. Low intakes of DHA-rich foods will result in low levels of DHA in breast milk. So if mom's not getting enough, she's not going to have enough in her stores. That's not going to be enough to get into her breast milk as well too. And especially in industrialized nations with low fish intake, the U.S. being a really good example of this, breast milk levels of DHA tend to be on the lower side. And higher breast milk levels of DHA will correlate to higher DHA levels in the infant, which will improve neurocognitive and vision development. So there have been many, many studies on DHA for supplementation for mom and for baby, and there's a whole host of evidence that shows that DHA supplementation is good for both. There's really good evidence that DHA supplementation during pregnancy can result in longer gestation periods, so keeping baby in there longer to help develop, greater birth weight, and length and head size, as well as fewer preterm births. Maternal supplementation during pregnancy and breastfeeding has also shown to potentially improve neurocognitive development, resulting in potentially higher IQ scores. And this lasts. It's obviously you can't test IQ in little babies, but this is shown in kids 4 years old and up, compared to those who didn't have that supplementation. So there does appear to be benefit for adding additional DHA into the diet in order to get these higher desired DHA levels. There also seems to be a big cost savings in increasing DHA levels for both mom and baby. Reducing pregnancy complications and decreasing those preterm birth rates can help, especially if we're testing those prenatal DHA levels. But also, there seems to be health benefits for baby, and we could be preventing some health issues for baby as well with cost savings there. Formula studies. So formula is typically fortified with DHA, although not all of it is. But more recently, more and more formulas are supplemented or are fortified with DHA. There have been several studies that show infants fed with formula that didn't have any DHA, because breast milk will always have low levels. So supplementing with that was sort of the control group, is having a formula with 0% DHA, and having infants fed with higher DHA supplement formula had improved stimulus processing time, and some other neurocognitive developmental markers. And then again, those benefits seem to last up until kids are well into kind of elementary school age. 6-year-old children who were fed that DHA as infants shown to be more efficient at processing information. So these are things that last. benefits that last. And that's in infants that were born at term. So, so that was for infants that were born at term. For preterm infants, DHA is even more crucial. So some studies have shown that 800 milligrams a day of DHA, the milk level of DHA between 0.8 and 1% for moms has been shown to kind of improve some of those outcomes that can be associated with preterm babies. So in incomplete lung development, necrotizing enterocolitis, and retinopathy of prematurity. So this is that eye development. Eye development and brain development are the two key outcomes for DHA supplementation. So they decrease inflammatory diseases of prematurity, which are the biggest risk factors for premature babies. Their guts aren't fully developed, lungs aren't fully developed, eyes aren't fully developed, and so with that excess inflammation, we can start to see those problems arise. And DHA supplementation seems to help kind of tampen down some of that inflammation. Infant DHA levels have been directly associated with cognitive and visual outcomes. So again, seems to be beneficial for mom during pregnancy. We're seeing benefits for infants, and that benefit lasts. So in 1997, infant RBC DHA levels were correlated with neurodevelopmental test scores at a year old. And visual acuity seems to be improved as well too. So there's a whole host of literature out there that is showing that the DHA levels found in whatever feeding source baby is getting have real world impacts on their neurocognitive development and their visual acuity and visual development. So obviously, if you're formula feeding, you know exactly how much DHA your baby's getting per day. It's listed on the can, right? If you're breastfeeding, it can be much harder to determine. One way would be testing mom's blood levels, but again, there's a correlation there, but we want to make sure, is it getting into the breast milk? Is it getting where it needs to be? So what is the mother's milk DHA test? And it's just that we are measuring the percent of total fatty acids in mother's milk that are DHA. Okay, so what percent of the fatty acids in mother's milk is DHA? And there are a whole ton, about 640 different fatty acids displayed for milk triglycerides. So there's a huge variety of fatty acids found in milk. And we're just looking at the DHA because that seems to have such a strong impact on cognitive development, visual development, and we really want to see what those look like. So it's expressed as a percentage. Go on here. And our mother's milk DHA target level is 0.32%. That seems to be the worldwide average, and that's where our minimum target level wants to be. So how do we find these levels? We're looking at circulating EPA and DHA levels. This is our omega-3 index and looking at averages around the world. And we're converting those omega-3 index-based equivalents into what would be needed to get that for infants. So we take a look around the world, and as you can see in certain parts of the world, especially in the United States, Canada, we have pretty low circulating levels of EPA and DHA. Our omega-3 indexes are not so great, and it's because we don't have as much fish intake as some other parts of the world, as you can see in nations that tend to be largely coastal, Greenland, Japan, certain Nordic countries. They eat a lot of fish. And so our fish intakes tend to be very low, and this has that cascading effect, right? Mom doesn't eat a lot of fish throughout her whole life. Her omega-3 index is low, so she's not getting enough EPA and DHA. Comes time to have a baby, gets pregnant, her DHA levels aren't high enough, right? And if she's not supplementing with DHA during pregnancy, has the baby, and then starts breastfeeding, baby's not getting enough DHA even after they're born. So this can have that cascading effect. And we see across adults, across the globe, but especially in industrialized nations that don't have a big culture of eating a lot of fish, we see pretty low levels of omega-3s and specifically DHA. So again, we want that DHA target level to be 0.32%. This is the scale we're using. Okay. For the UK and Australia, we're seeing average levels here at about 0.24, 0.25%. In the US and Canada, it's 0.17%. China does a little bit better. These island nations like the Philippines and Japan just have much higher levels of fish intake. So they're seeing their DHA levels be much higher. And in breast milk, having a DHA level of 1% like Japan does right here at 0.99%, it's just reflective of how much DHA those women have on board through their whole lives, the stores they have to pull from when they are lactating. So here, certain parts of the world, we've got some work to do, especially if we look over here at the US and Canada, we are just falling far, far behind. So why do we pick that 0.32%? It really corresponds well to the estimated or kind of correlated milk levels from the current recommendation for DHA intake for by the American Academy of Pediatrics. So the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends pregnant women, pregnant and lactating women intake 200 milligrams per day of DHA alone. So that doesn't include EPA, doesn't include other omega-3, so just 200 milligrams of DHA is recommended, or at least 200 milligrams of DHA is recommended. If you have that intake of DHA, the estimated milk level you would have, or the corresponding milk level, would be that 0.32%. So we're matching that recommendation from the American Academy of Pediatrics. It also, that 0.32% is the worldwide average of milk DHA, okay? So we're looking for, we want to meet that AAP recommended level, and it also happens to be the recommended or that worldwide average for milk DHA. And remember, some of those countries are really, really high up, so they're pulling up the average from, if you include those, the nations that aren't doing it as well. Formula is also fortified to at least this level of DHA. So this is kind of the minimum fortified level of formula for DHA level. So we want breast milk to have at least as much as formula does, right? We kind of hear that breast is best, like breast milk is that ideal food source for babies. Formula is awesome, and so we just want to make sure our breast milk has all of that recommended nutrient levels. And research has shown those neurocognitive benefits for the infants at this level. So we're seeing all of those benefits, right? We are seeing it's because of the AAP recommendation. It also is the worldwide average, and this is also what formula is supplemented to. So our levels are research backed. This is where we got our recommendations from. So how our tests work is you're using a dried spot card and putting a couple drops of milk on there and sending it off to our labs. You may think, well, how accurate is this? So this is a little bit of nerdy lab data to show that these dried milk spots are just as accurate for testing as if you were to send in, a vial of breast milk. So for moms who are breastfeeding, you don't have to waste much milk for this. It's a couple of drops. It's not, you're not going to have to send off 2 ounces of that liquid gold to us. It's just a few drops. You won't have to contaminate any breast milk. You won't be losing any. So we're keeping that saved. And DHA levels in breast milk were the same from, those liquid samples versus the dried spot samples. So we're not wasting any breast milk. So this is how our tests work. You put a few drops on a card and send it off. I'll talk a little bit about in a few minutes how that testing process works. But just rest assured, if you are going to have your breast milk tested with us, you're not going to be wasting a bunch of milk. Okay. And again, a little more nerdy lab data, but we're going to be shipping this in the mail. We don't have to worry about our milk going bad. So again, it's only just a few drops on a card, but it is stable, and it's stable actually for several weeks on that card, and the DHA levels stay stable. So no worries about the milk being bad or the test results being inaccurate when they get to our labs. These results were from women sending cards from all over the country and testing to make sure that their levels were safe and stable. So you're getting an accurate picture of what's actually in that milk when they get to our labs in South Dakota. So everything's stable again, just making sure that we have accurate tests for you so you're getting good results and we're not wasting any milk. And this is another concern that moms may have, especially, for those younger babies, but the DHA levels in mature milk, foremilk, and hind milk. So we have colostrum produced at the beginning for those itty bitty babies, and then we have mature milk after that. And then we also have foremilk and hind milk. So that milk that comes out at the beginning of the letdown, and then milk that comes out a little bit later. The DHA levels are the same. So colostrum obviously has a difference. So if you're getting your colostrum tested, if you're early on in your breastfeeding journey, that is different than mature milk. Okay, so that is going to be different, but it doesn't matter the time of day you collect it. It doesn't matter if it's an early in the feed or late in the feed. And the same goes for mature milk. It doesn't matter if you get it right after letdown or later in the feed. The DHA composition is going to be the same. Okay, so when you get your report, this is what your report is going to look like. We have that desirable range being above that 0.32%. Your value will be right there. I think this is just a really, really cool test at the end of the day. It's a very unique test. It's not something that a lot of people, know to do or may have had the opportunity to do in the past. So I highly, highly recommend it for anybody that is breastfeeding. It's just a really, really unique and neat thing that we are able to offer. Our results come in these really great reports. You're going to get a little printout at the bottom of this report that'll just do a little bit of explaining a lot of the things that I've talked about as well too. So just in case you don't forget anything, you can always come back and watch this video. But you'll get a little bit of explanation at the bottom of your report as well. So what do we do if our levels are low? And if you live in the United States, absolutely no shame. Your levels probably might be low, especially if you don't intake a whole lot of fish. So what do? Thankfully, in recent years, guidelines for pregnant and lactating women have become much more fish friendly. Okay. So for a long time, it was sort of don't eat fish if you're pregnant or breastfeeding. We were very afraid of mercury levels, but now we know the importance of those DHA fatty levels in fish. And we know that we can eat low mercury fish and be just fine. The risks are incredibly, incredibly low. So there are some nutrition groups that recommend, certain levels of fish. The British Nutrition Foundation recommends 2 portions of fish per week. One of it should be oily. There really aren't any solid recommendations for those who are breastfeeding. The FDA recommends 2 servings of low mercury fish, and the Academy of American Pediatrics, or American Academy of Pediatrics, recommends 200 to 300 milligrams of DHA per day for pregnant and lactating women. So the best way to get that is primarily from low mercury fish. So for a long time, fish was not recommended during pregnancy and breastfeeding, but now we know better, and we can have low mercury fish, and we really want to try to get that 200 to 300 milligrams of DHA per day. Okay, so it's okay to eat fish while you're pregnant. In fact, it is encouraged, and especially when breastfeeding as well too, it is definitely encouraged to eat that fish as well. So what counts as low mercury fish? These are lists that you can find on our website, but they also come with some of our results printouts. So this is just a list of these low mercury fish. You can eat these at least 2 times a week. So things like salmon, herring, trout, scallops, tilapia, clams, all sorts of fish will have good amounts of DHA. If you look at those DHA levels, if you have Atlantic salmon twice a week, you are getting a ton of DHA, right? So it doesn't take a whole lot of fish in order to get the DHA levels you need, right? Atlantic salmon twice a week, no problem. And especially if you're pregnant or breastfeeding, this is just a super simple way to make sure that you're getting enough of that DHA. You don't have to eat it every single day. So here's some moderate mercury. We probably want to be really careful eating these maybe once a week if you're breastfeeding. Bluefin tuna, really be careful and mindful of the tuna that you're eating, making sure that it is that bluefin. There are others. Yellowfin has a little bit more mercury and a lot less DHA, so just be careful. Mahi, cod. Some of these, especially these ones that are on the lower part of the list that aren't as big of sources of DHA, maybe be careful with those. Albacore tuna, things like that are okay, but just probably only once a week. And then these are the ones you really want to avoid. These tend to be large fish, so swordfish, shark. These are really, really big fish. They're predatory fish, so they eat the smaller fish, and the mercury builds up in them over time. And frankly, they're not as good as sources of DHA. So salmon, you can eat twice a week and get, what is that, 1,200 milligrams of DHA per serving. Swordfish, you're barely getting even half of that. And you have that mercury risk as well too. So something you really want to be careful of. And then the next option here is supplements. So please, I should put this disclaimer for any dietary changes and supplements changes. Please talk to your doctor, especially if you are pregnant. Talk to your doctor before starting a supplement. Really be looking at the DHA content of your supplement. Ideally, the supplement you choose will have the EPA and DHA levels parsed out on there. It'll tell you exactly how many milligrams of DHA you're getting, especially if you are pregnant and breastfeeding. We really are focused on DHA. It's not just omega-3s overall that we care about. It's DHA in specific. So take a look at those. DHA content of supplements varies widely. You can see, a couple 100 milligrams or barely 100 milligrams in some supplements, and some may have upwards of 1,000. It is a very, very wide distribution of how much a supplement will have in it. So just keep that in mind. If you are taking a supplement, just turn it over and take a look at that supplement facts label and see where you're at. But again, in order to verify, like, is my supplement working? Is it good enough? Because supplements can be a little bit of the wild, wild west. We do want to take that time and get that level tested. Get your milk tested. It's a really neat test to do. It can just give you that peace of mind. Like, yes, I am getting enough. And yes, my baby is getting enough now. So one note on here as well when we're talking about supplements is supplementing with ALA, which is an omega-3, but it is a plant-based omega-3, does not impact breast milk DHA levels. So if you are taking an omega-3 supplement that has ALA in it, it does not impact breast milk DHA levels. Flaxseed is a main source of this. So I see a lot of parents or a lot of moms, making their smoothies with like flaxseed oil or flaxseed, and it does not impact that DHA. You're getting some omega-3s in there. It may do good for your anti-inflammation. It may have some health benefits for you, but it is not getting into your breast milk, and it is not impacting DHA levels. You are not getting your DHA levels upwards. And this is another reason why, especially if you're not supplementing, and you're just not sure like how your diet is doing, you don't have an exact number, to get your breast milk tested and okay, where the levels are right here. So how do you do our test? We talked all about the benefits and you're like, yes, I want to do this test. It is so easy. It's so simple and easy to do. We'll send you this little, test kit. The first thing you're going to do when you get your test kit is register your test kit on OmegaQuant.com using that barcode. You will not receive your test results unless you register your kit. So please, please, please register your kit. You're going to fill out the information card, and then you're going to put a drop of milk on the little card. Like I said, just a drop of milk. It's more, just a drop of milk is all that's needed. If you end up with a drop or a couple extra drops on there, it's not a big deal. It doesn't matter. But we just want to use as little as possible. Again, one of the greatest things about this test is we're using just a drop of breast milk. Breast milk is that liquid gold. We're not wasting any bit of it. Let the milk spot dry. You stick it in the mail and send it off to us. Again, you'll receive your results in about 2 to 4 weeks. And then wait a few weeks after you get your results to test again if your levels come back and you want to make some changes. Breast milk will change pretty quickly with dietary changes because of how quickly breast milk is produced. So it actually might change a little bit faster than blood level results will. It'll respond to those changes a little bit quicker because of how quickly breast milk is produced. We're producing it all the time. So how do you go on and order our test kit? You go on to OmegaQuant.com/shop, order a test kit. We'll send you that kit off. You collect your sample and send it back in. It's super, super easy to do. It's a really just neat, interesting, and really, really helpful for guiding some dietary changes. The whole landscape of pregnancy and breastfeeding nutrition recommendations can feel really thorny and really tough to navigate. And this is just something that will help guide you to make a little bit better decisions. And as always, talk to your doctor about your results if you have any questions or concerns. Before starting or changing any of your diet or supplement regimen, especially if you are pregnant, that's super, super important. But for lactating women, I just think this is such a great test and something really, really cool. And I hope you enjoy it. Thank you so much.